Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Astral. Wanted to bring up something I just created called the UFO Trenches and give people maybe just a primer to what they can expect when getting involved in the UFO community, UFO X, UFO Twitter, spaces, just a deeper level of maybe what to expect, the good, the bad, because it is pretty wild. I would say just the craziest UFO show, soap opera community that's probably out there. And I created a presentation that I'm just going to go through real quick. I think it'll be helpful. Hopefully it, might be able to give some advice and be helpful to people who are just getting introduced into the UFO topic, are getting into the community, are learning about, ways to network and work together with experiencers. So that's really what was really appealing to me when I first got involved. Just a little bit about my background in UFO Twitter, UFO X, and getting involved in, the community in the field is about 4 years ago. I really got involved into the topic and learned about UFO X and UFO Twitter online. Before that, I was really involved in parapsychology, into a little bit of the CE5 and high stuff. Like the topic, I was introduced to it through Stephen Greer and some other names, but wasn't really into the topic and participating and getting involved in nearly as much as I am now. So learned about UFO Twitter and got involved in, and that was right around the time where they had Spaces. So Spaces was really just being under development. There was another community or another platform, Clubhouse, and they had similar things where they were having discussions. They had hosts, co-hosts, speakers can come up and just talk openly about what the topics were. And so X started developing this feature and had Spaces. And this was right around that time where I came into the fold about a little bit more over 4 years ago. And so I found it fascinating. I loved it that people were having the open discussion. And X is really, I believe, on the forefront of the topic of UFOs and aliens and all that stuff, with even like simulation stuff and reality and quantum physics, all this. It feels like X is the one who's breaking the news and having the discussions that are relevant in the topic that are happening every day. Not to say that it's not happening on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or whatever, but I think it's happening first, and it's happening most prevalent on X. And so that is really the platform that I think most of the activity is happening within the topic. The other ones are used, I think, a lot for like content, which I use. I'm trying to establish my Instagram channel, not too much on LinkedIn. Primarily my activity is based around X and YouTube. So that's where a lot of my stuff is going to be on. But I wasn't really that much involved in X. So getting involved in X or Twitter, I found it surprising how accessible people were. So how easily it was to be able to communicate with somebody within the field that was working on disclosure or had done research, written a book, making a documentary. That was very refreshing. And a lot of the goals for the spaces when I, initially came introduced to them were just having a good discussion, having a good guest. So having guests around and, having those pieces of work with researchers introduced to the community or getting involved into people, because a lot of, I think, people who are coming up into spaces weren't really familiar, at least I wasn't familiar that much with UFO history and a lot of the cases and, a lot of the researchers. I had heard the names in the news and people involved in things like TTSA and stuff like that, but I wasn't really up to date and aware of a lot of the research that had been done. Stuff like Jacques Vallée, John Keel, a lot of the people who were doing the boots on the ground stuff. So I was always interested, just like I was when I learned about Psi, and learning about what research was actually being done into the field and to establish a field and, the research body and stuff like that. I was just a nerd like that. After my precognitive experiences, I just got so deep into trying to understand the science of it. So the same thing when I came over to the field. So it was refreshing to learn about people who are just as passionate as I was. And I'll go over a little bit is, I think a lot of the field is developed into people who are very passionate just about the field as they would be in like a sports team. So I relate ufology to being a sports team because I'm a sports fan. I like sports. I played sports, played baseball growing up my whole life. And I can equate that that passion that people have for their sports teams, for their sports players, into ufology. So there's a lot of back and forth, there's tension, there's debates, there's arguing, there's a lot of that going on in the, the quote UFO trenches. And I think, to me, that's a good thing. I think a lot of the times it crosses over. Sometimes it gets personal, and it gets just a little bit too much. And that's kind of like the darker side of what I'll go over too of the UFO trenches, is like, people just take it way too serious. They start to get personal. They start to do things below the belt, and it's just not a good look overall for the whole field. And so, that's just a lot of what is pertained. What I'm trying to do is to create a presentation that gives people a complete idea of all the aspects of what they're getting into when they get involved. Some people just like to come in and like to observe. Sometimes I just like to chill and observe and not really get too involved, and that's fine. But I've seen people that come in and they don't really know what to expect with getting involved in the UFO topic, and they kind of get overwhelmed, and then they just leave in a matter of weeks, months. So just to have this video to give people an idea of what to expect. And again, what I loved about it was the collaboration, and I'll go over about what the benefits I found from working in spaces and how I navigate around doing things. And who am I? Somebody who just had got involved into the field, tried to establish my creative brand, and just networked with a lot of people that I've enjoyed their research and enjoyed listening to in spaces. And I think a lot of the time that's just what people are looking for, is for like-minded people who they can work with on different projects that get them excited about the topic, stuff like that. So what I'll do is I'll take a break here and go ahead and bring up my presentation. And I called it the UFO trenches just because it's so wild. It's the craziest place in, I don't know, the world. And so I just made the presentation to, again, give people an idea of what getting involved in the UFO topic, in a deeper level would look like, what you can expect going in, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that. So let me just hop over. All right. So one of the things that I hear a lot from people who are coming into spaces and just into the topic is, I'm just here for the truth. I just want to know the truth. And my direct response to that would be like, you're not going to get the truth. You are not going to get the absolute truth of what is going on with the UFO topic and aliens. People have been in this topic for 60 years and they still could not tell you what the absolute truth is of what's going on. And so I think on a deeper level, people are going to be involved or interested or curious about the UFO topic for very different reasons. But this statement to me is overused in that, of course, everybody wants to know what's really going on. Everybody in the world wants to know the truth. But why are you involved in the UFO topic? Because it's one thing to just be interested in knowing the truth about UFOs. Absolutely. But becoming involved and becoming an advocate or being skeptical about things, making content, I think, why are you taking the next level into the topic? Could be what I've seen from like curiosity of just being someone having an experience, trying to understand it on a deeper level, finding the community of other people that are interested in this topic. It was very refreshing to find people who were just as interested in the UFOs and digging deep into it and researching it than as I was, just even with Psi and the Psi and the UFOs, they match up and a lot of things overlap, and even a lot of researchers overlap as well. So it was good to find community that not only just in the Psi field are there people just as interested in UFOs, but in the UFO topic, there's just people as passionate as I am about all this stuff and about exploring it and creating and stuff like that. So it was very refreshing to find that. And just wanting answers, like people having experiences and want to know like what happened on a very simple level. Lucid dream, precognitive dream, telepathy, communication with somebody in the past life, communicating with someone who just passed away, different things like that, life after death, the afterlife, trying to get a little bit closer. And again, finding the truth to all that, those questions, those are like so deep of questions that to find out the truth, the absolute truth of those is almost impossible. It's really impossible at this point to narrow it down. And I think that one of the things that I look at is Jacques Vallée. He says, whenever I get an answer, I have 3 more questions, you know? So more answers to this are just going to lead to more questions, I think, down the line. Here's another question I see a lot. And people will come in and they'll see 2 researchers going back and forth, or 2 ideas going back and forth, and kind of being debated on. Why can't everybody in ufology get along and just work together, right? I think it's like asking Yankees, and again, I'm gonna reference the sports thing. It's like asking Yankees and Red Sox fans to work together, or people who just have totally different ideals. And also, we're working within disinformation, misinformation, psyops. All of this stuff is being thrust into the equation. So for everybody to work together, there's just such different personalities and such different egos and level of egos that are into this, that I don't see, even on a small scale. You know, we're talking about people within the community that are always going at it in spaces, yada, yada, yada. But you see it on a bigger level. Stephen Greer and Lou Elizondo. You see, Shermer and different people clashing with him, and Kirkpatrick. You know, like, these people are not going to get along. They're not going to like suddenly be like, okay, let's all work together for the good of the topic. We're past that. And it's not going to happen to where that's going to be a resolution where everybody is just kumbaya working forward in the field. So there's different groups and different goals, I think, when people are coming in, like, why are you here? Okay. And everybody can't work together, but I think everybody can sort of stick to their lane of what their goals are within this. So researchers looking for evidence, experiencers looking for personal truth or just validation or confirmation of their experiences. Journalists are looking for sources to publish the stories about the topic. Scientists are looking for evidence and data. Politicians are looking for oversight, any kind of advantage that they can get politically and legislation to get their message through and be part of something that's successful. Creators looking to entertain and just to grow their brand. I can relate on that one. And then skeptics looking for falsification. You know, that's just something that I came up with really quickly on some of the goals that I think of why people would be here for different reasons. Be open to that, be mindful. People could be coming in with totally different approaches to what they're just looking for in general. This is what I've talked about before, the reality of ufology, like the field itself. There's just different things that are in play, larger scale things that are in play here. Ufology is a sports team. That's just my approach to it. There's different, ways that you could look at it more as entertainment. You can look at it more of like a scientific field. There's different approaches to it. I just take it as like more of just a sports team. Somebody who I would look at is like how I would root for my team or something like that. And I'm critical of the topic. I think maybe overly critical of how people would imagine someone to be who's as passionate of the topic as I am. But that just goes to show of my approach to how I think things can be improved. Just like the improvements that you think you could make as a fan to your team. I like to voice my opinion and to make things known of things that I don't like going on within ufology. That's just how it is. If the field were set up more so to have evidence-based and weren't so personality-driven and having to go by the trust me bros of a certain group of certain people, I would approach it differently. I would approach this topic differently, but I'm just bombarded all of the time with names, quotes, claims, people who I'm supposed to take seriously. And I'll voice my frustration all of the time because I think we should be able to have more as a public into the topic and even understanding what's going on. And when people are telling us that they have and they're supposed to have access to this information, and they sort of gatekeep it in a way, I'm probably going to amp it up and to be more vocal. And I think the frustration you're seeing of the frustration within the community of people getting involved and not necessarily getting the answers in which they feel like they should be getting after learning about and getting interested and involved in the topic. So it's just a little bit of a dynamic breakdown. There's tribes and personalities. There's groups all over the place, especially when you get deeper into the community of people going into spaces. People, there's a big association game that you need to aware about you're associated with him. Yeah, I don't even partake in it. If you have come into my spaces and been respectful, I don't worry about stuff that you said 16 years ago in a space or online. I just don't have the time to look people up. Things will come onto my radar that could be concerning, and then I'll adjust accordingly. But for the most part, I think if you're respectful when you interact with what I'm doing, I'm not going to play this association game where everybody is associated with somebody who they don't like. And I think that happens a lot. Unfortunately, that happens a lot in the world. I mean, how you want to approach that is different, but I don't really get too involved in the deeper dwells of who everybody is hanging out with and who doesn't hang out with, because there's different spaces and different motivations into them all the time. So belief versus evidence, that's a big one. I mean, we can go, that's a whole debate. We had that as a debate topic of how strong is debate, the belief of UFOs versus the evidence of UFOs. So there's going to be all different sides of that. And then the trust me bro economy, I think we need to be real about this, is it's becoming, ufology is basically becoming a whole field of an economy, of a business. And, there's different aspects to that: funding, branding, businesses, small businesses, research organizations, legislation. We've got now whistleblowers starting organizations. So I think there's a certain reality to where this is a whole economy that's being based here. This is not necessarily just some couple people that are just trying to get this information out. This has been, built and built, accordingly with what's going on. All right, spaces culture. Again, I've been on spaces for about 4 years. I really have been forced to learn the community, especially on X, because one of my first ideas that I had getting on the platform was hosting a remote viewing space. My remote viewing spaces that I've been doing for really about 4 years. So every week on Thursday, I would host a space in which I would have a target and do the whole remote viewing thing. But I would also talk about, UFOs. And so 4 years in a row, think about it, doing spaces every week, 200 spaces. I'm going to just by default learn about what's going on in the community through conversations and people jumping in. And I sort of had to at times pay attention to some of the dynamics that were going on in the community so that I can expect things to try and block it out. That was one of my main goals. I think at some point you have to make a decision as a space host on how controlled you want your space to be. How to the topic do you want things to be? Because there's different people who jump in and try and take over the conversation. There's sidetracks, there's trolls, there's things that, if you are not aware of, then you're hosting a space, you're just going to get sidetracked, and your conversation that you tried to set up and kind of facilitate to the community is just going to be taken over, and it's not going to be a productive thing. So you have to be just prepared. And I think at one point I just had to decide, look, the most important thing to me is the discussion itself. If I have to kick people who I've interacted with here before, that are in groups, that are in other groups, that are respected people, that are researchers, because they're getting personal, they're getting out of hand, they're sidetracking the conversation. I didn't mind doing that, and I didn't mind the hit of the people who are getting frustrated because that happened to them. So one of the things that I've really taken account of is the way that I move in terms of dealing with people who don't like what I'm doing. I just block it out. Mute button, block button, I use heavily. I just don't even try and hear the noise. So that if I have to kick somebody out of my space, it's not this long drawn out drama thing, because I don't even care. Like, bro, I've already moved on. And so I think that your ability to ignore is just as important for your ability to host a good space. So you've got to be able to navigate your way through that. And hosting spaces is not easy. It's a difficult thing. You have to, especially if it's a topic that's popular and people are coming in and out, and you're not familiar with a lot of the community and a lot of the things that are going on in the dynamics. You could just walk into, you could walk into a storm if you're hosting a space and you're trying to talk about UFOs. But like I was saying earlier, in these ebb and flows that happen within the community, if there's absolute chaos going on and you just want to host a space, talk about UFOs, it can turn into this drama fest and, just crazy conversation that goes in all different directions that you didn't intend to. So, you just got to be aware of it. There's a lot of noise when it comes out there. A lot of it goes back to the hosts. I think one of the things that I would like to see more of is just quality hosts. People are willing to mute, send people down, get the conversation back, sort of call that out and be like, all right, guys, like, we don't need any of this, dude. Some people like it. It's entertainment. I go into these type of spaces from time to time, and it's just, entertainment. It's funny. I find myself laughing harder than a lot of anything else that I'm laughing at with stuff that happens within the UFO community. I got to be honest. It's some of the funnest and funniest stuff that I've ever heard and have ever just been a part of. But there's this separation that I think you sort of have to do so that you're just not involved like that. To me, I would not recommend getting in and just long drawn out fights. So, and then you've got the different intentions of like people who are here for nefarious purposes and are not here for the right reasons. And you look at trolls, stock accounts, this whole thing of like death by association of like, oh, you're associated with this person. Like, I don't like you. Like, okay. There's drama, definitely drama farming. People are just trying to start a lot of stuff all the time. Sometimes it's genuine. There's different beefs that people within the UFO community, I go back and forth with people all the time on different things that keep it respectful. And, but I think a lot of the times it just crosses the line. And so again, like when that happens, I just block, mute. See, you don't exist to me. The things that cross the line, I don't even see now because those guys are blocked. They don't even exist to me. I wouldn't even want to draw attention to some of this stuff. I think that's I tried to look at it early on. And again, this is like a year, 2 years into spaces and there's stuff going on. And I'm like, man, I don't know whether or not to jump in and deal with this or to kind of stay back. And I think for me, I thought about the people who were following my page, following my brand, and looking at, I wouldn't want, if I was following myself, me to be just like jumping in these pits, in this quicksand, in these like just terrible looks for everybody who's going to be getting involved. It's just like a bad look. So, some people want to jump in and do Superman, go for it, man. Like, that's what I'll say. Like, you won't find me jumping in and like trying to save the community. It's just, would you just jump into some random fight on the road of two guys? I wouldn't. You're just opening yourself up. So, just be careful in your approach to when you're going about, because people could be doing all this different things, especially with like sock accounts. I put crash outs here. I crash out all the time. Okay. Like, I crash out in the topic about UFOs, about people, about what's going on, about my frustrations. So there's a level to it. And, but yeah, there's definitely people who take it, and when you get alcohol involved and drugs and all this stuff, man, it's just a bad look overall. And I think the misconception that people have with coming into spaces and in the UFO topic is this is the community, like this is what it is. And to me, it's just a bad representation a lot of the time when people who are trying to frame themselves as part of the community. I'm part of the community, and I'm always in spaces. But if you're always in spaces that suck and that are trash and that are always fighting and are always creating drama, you're not. You're part of the crappy part of the UFO. Like, congratulations, you are the ones that are making this a bad look. And so I think you just have to like frame it as there's different parts and different people hosting spaces. And, sometimes people just want to have a good time and a good conversation. I like going into a space and not even talking about UFOs, talking about video games or sports or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Current times of whatever is going on, or people just want to cut the shit, whatever, just like have a good time for a Friday night. That's all good. So you just got to pick and choose. And I think you got to see first, like get the lay of the land. Don't just jump in and don't just assume that like this space represents a UFO community. I think you got to give it time and give it a little bit more research. So, just the upside. This is the good parts. There are some of the bad parts of space that I think people tend to focus on a lot. Rightfully so, but I think there are some upsides, and this is what I've found, at least for me, some of the upsides of, doing co-research with people. I've started a research project where we would outfit people who are going out and making contact through HEISS and CE5 with EEG devices, and we're, sending devices out and getting data back and trying to create this project. And we even got funding. We got funding, a couple $1,000s to buy these kits from someone on X who was seeing our activity of what we just built. So that all happened recently in the last couple of years of, just going through and working with someone who I met in spaces and then met at Roswell in real life, which is Jared, my friend Jared. I think, look, when you go into a good space and the flow and the vibe is right, and there's a good host, good discussion, good people up on stage, there's no like ill intentions, there's some extremely engaging discussions, really some of the best in ufology, I would say, and in some of these spaces are some of the best discussions that are on the forefront. You'll have people jump in that are part of the field, and they'll give their research, they'll give their opinions, so they recognize like, look, this is a good space for me to share my information. They had to pick and choose before, when I think spaces were a lot more inviting to people. They might not be as inviting as they were 3 years ago for people to just jump up and join the conversation. But I think there are some extremely engaging discussions and valuable discussions that are happening, sharing the resources. There are people who I've seen collaborate on things, on AI videos, on creative work, on projects, videos for their YouTube. I've been doing a lot of collaborations with, people like Patrick from Vetted and Tom Cortex Zero, people who I've met on this platform, interacting with the community, just networking. I would not be the producer of Need to Know or Sound Light and Frequency had I not gone on and started networking with all of this stuff. Even the first organization who I started working with, UAP Med, who I built the website for and was helping with presentations and starting these research projects, was through a Twitter space. They had gone on and he's like, I'm building this organization. I just need help. Don't really have a lot of technology and marketing background. I'm just looking for help. And at that time, when I first got onto the topic like 3 years ago, I was like all for like, I'll help out, whatever you need, like website development, sure, marketing, graphics, like I have all that experience, sound, video, whatever. So I was a lot more willing. I think now I'm a lot more hesitant to help out, and I'm just busier. I have a lot of commitments that I have, including like the Psy Games and some of these other podcasts. But those opportunities really came through networking in these spaces and getting my brand out and starting to work with others on this, collaboration, community building. So even the UFO Twitter week is something that the possibility is there. I tried to prove it with UFO Twitter week, is just getting a whole week of spaces that were totally focused on the topic, great discussions. Everybody was hosting. Everybody had a clear intention to like promote the topic and get it out there and really just be a good beacon for people who wanted to learn more about UFOs and aliens, non-human intelligence, psychic phenomenon, all this stuff. And so the possibility is there. I think it's hard to just get everybody in that same direction. And again, like, why can't everybody get along? That's probably the closest that you're going to see is something like UFO Twitter week, where there's different perspectives, but everybody's still like in the umbrella of UFOs. This is a serious thing. We need to start studying this more. Like, that's more of like working together than like everybody's got to like each other. It's not going to happen. That's something like that is just not realistic to me. And, one of the interesting things that I saw is real-time experiences and real-time data collection that were happening, where there was a sighting one time in California where people were jumping in spaces and being like, I just got a video of that. And then somebody else 30 minutes later was like, I was part of that sighting. Here's my video. So it was two different perspectives and two different videos and pieces of evidence that were able to be submitted. So it's like live. And also Twitter is savage. Let me just say it's savage about fact checking and taking things to task when it comes to, like evidence or videos. And so I've seen a lot of times people are trying to share their information or their, evidence, and it gets torn apart, gets ripped apart because you got to think about people who have that motivation to want to do that. So they're just waiting. So just be aware that you're dropping it and then making this huge claim that it's going to have this huge effect. People are just salivating for the evidence to come, not necessarily to rip it apart. Most of the time that's what it does. But just be aware that you're going to get hyper scrutinized on the evidence that you drop, especially, look what happened to Skywatcher. Skywatcher was making these huge claims that they were going to bring down a craft and they were going to prove this and they were going to prove that. They still haven't released any of their data. They got held up on their third episode. It's, for lack of better, it's resolved. It's like dissolved, the whole organization. We haven't heard from them in like a half of a year. More than that. They were supposed to have it's almost been like 9 months for Skywatcher, that any activity. So don't shoot yourself in the foot by trying to make these like huge statements about what your evidence is. It's a lot better of you to be open-minded about even being debunked and people skeptical who are going to be analyzing your stuff and just being like, I don't know what this is. Like, you guys have at it, please just try and tell me, if anything, what this was. Then I think you'll have a lot better approach and a lot better reception to people in the community too. Some of my tips on how to survive in the community. Yes, you probably, it's like, the meme where like Arnold's packing up his like chest and he's zipping it up and he's got all his weapons. It's basically like that. Okay. Like, you better be ready. He said in the beginning, you got to have thick skin. You got to be ready to just take a lot of criticism, a lot of pushback, a lot of trolling. It's just going to happen, especially if you're going to be a public voice. If you're going to be a public voice and you want people to pay attention to what you say in the topic, you're going to get a lot of opposition, however it's going to come, whether you're a skeptic, whether you're an experiencer, whether you're an insider, whether it's like any side of it. How I would navigate is just operate within your own bubble. Like, don't try and get too far out of what you're doing. And I think a lot of the stuff is just meant for distraction. I try to limit the distractions. I try to just keep to what I'm working on, because you jump in and you get involved in drama and you're back and forth and you're arguing with this. Next thing you know, a half a day has gone by and you ain't done anything. You ain't done shit. And so when you have projects that I'm working on and things that I have expectations of and deadlines and, things that I want to build myself, just building out things like this YouTube channel, it's difficult. If it would be extremely difficult if I just got sidetracked with all the drama stuff that's going on UFO Twitter and to be bogged down. So if you're really trying to build something, you got to operate within your own bubble. Like, I'll throw some quips out there. I'll go back and forth with somebody, but it's not going to be this whole drawn out thing where it's like days and then I'm hosting spaces about this person and I'm trying, and I'm doing in the chat. It's just, I just forget about it. I operate. I'm like, all right, I got to get back to work. I use the block and mute frequently, just to not even just be like, I don't want to hear this, but to limit me even interacting or seeing it. It's just doesn't exist to me. So it's like the do not exist button. It's basically what I use it for. Is just, all right, I don't even, like, you don't even exist to me. Your stuff doesn't even exist to me. And I think if I didn't have that, it'd be like I'd be getting distracted on just seeing it and it entering. And so I just eliminate it from it even entering my vision. So that's why I use it pretty frequently. And again, that's like feeding the trolls. Every argument, I wouldn't say I avoid every argument. I avoid drawing out like a drawn out argument of like back and forth of like 10 messages. You won't see me do that. I'll go back and forth, maybe 1 or 2 messages back and forth, say my piece, and then I'm out. I'm not going to have this long drawn out. And again, like, you don't want, it's for me, I wouldn't want who I'm following to just be getting in these arguments of like 10 and 20 messages where it's dumb. I wouldn't want my followers seeing that, to be honest. I wouldn't want people who are trying to get into the UFO topic just always seeing my arguments of when I'm going back and forth. And a lot of the time, I try not to tweet right away, especially on that. I'll tweet some stuff right off of the bat, but a lot of the time there's some amount of regret in there when you really go at it and you just are all in the emotion and all in the moment. There's another damn, like I shouldn't have done that. So, just take a step back. Don't get too drawn out into the arguments online. And the key one is take a break, man. Like there's frequently about once every one or 2 weeks where I just take a complete day out of the topic. I don't even try and look for anything. If something gets on my radar because I'm hit with a couple notifications on something that's going down, I might take a look at it, but I don't even open up really the app. I don't look into any of my emails that I'll be getting the information. I've got everything planned out so that I don't need to work on anything that day. And I just completely separate myself from the topic and, hang out with the kids, go out and play baseball, go play some catch, play some video games, do whatever, watch some TV shows, and, just separate myself. And I think you have to do that, especially getting into the topic because it's so wild and it's so draining at times to be emotionally invested in a lot of this stuff that you just have to take a break. Some people take week breaks. Some people take month breaks. I've seen people take year breaks and then come back, especially being, like I said, I've been hosting spaces for 4 years. So to see people come back and be like, man, I took a break, be like, hell yeah, dude, like get healthy. And don't let this topic get the best of you to where it's just like affecting your mental health and you're getting drained and you're extremely emotional and negative and all this stuff. And sometimes when things are high, when I'm like frustrated, I'm like, man, I gotta just step away. It's getting too hot. I'm getting too mad. And so sometimes I'll just step away. I'll come back and I'll try to like just align myself to come in a little bit fresh. So, always take breaks. Use research and critical thinking. I think critical thinking and discernment are the most important things when you're going through this, to be able to have discernment, okay? Not to jump on things as real, but not to debunk things because you're sort of jaded in how disclosure has been going. I think it's a balance you have to take, separating the claims from the evidence. Following data and personalities, that's a tough one for me because I was so science-based coming into the topic, and you look at psi and parapsychology and how the field was built, and now it's just all the personalities, journalism. What are these guys saying? Ross Coulthart, George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, all these guys, Stephen Greer, that are the leading voices in the topic that are trying to break us the news when there's no real scientific field that's being developed that is establishing the evidence instead of claims. And so that's, how do they know? How do these guys know? How do you take people credible? And that's the main thing that people have to navigate through, is who they think are credible. And so a lot of people have different opinions on different people within the community. And so it's tough to get a gauge on it. I think if you find a few channels which resonate with you and which you like, and you like their opinions, keep like a handful of channels in which may have some differing opinions, but you like their approach to the topic. That's kind of how I go about it, is I listen to 5 to 10 channels that consistently are on top of the topic, that are publishing material, and I just like consume that, and I get opinions and kind of form what I think about the topic based off of that, and also what's going on in the news. So using a lot of that. And beware of the narrative traps. So there's narrative traps that are going to be coming in, and narrative control and disinformation. You always have to be aware of that. And I think that's where the discernment comes in, is being able to have that discernment to identify and be like, oh, okay, like I believe this, but I think it actually might be disinformation now. So whether you're a content creator, podcaster, researcher, part of some organizations, just a Spaces host even, Spaces host, I think there's things that you can take from the community to sort of build your brand, build what you're trying to work on, but also not get too deep down into the weeds where some of the things that you could be doing would be hurting your brand or not the best look. So something like that to me was the UFO Twitter week, of building something that was collaborative, that allowed people to have their own voice, to be able to be networking and working within themselves on different projects. So you've got to always sort of step back sometimes and see how the perception of your brand is based off of what you're doing, to not get, like, again, if you're arguing online and you're just getting in these things where you're, this like dark side of Twitter where, it's just ugly and it's nasty and it's dumb and stupid, that it's not going to be a good look for your brand, especially if you try and like highlight it, be like, look what these guys are doing. And you're just, like, I don't even take part. I don't try and highlight any of the things that are done to me. I just ignore it. Like, again, it doesn't exist to me. These guys want to waste time on there. I'm not going to be like, look what these guys are doing. Oh my gosh, like everybody needs it. To me, like, look how these guys are wasting their time. I'm going to go ahead and get back to work, because what I'm working on is probably the thing that's really pissing them off. And so if you're being distracted from building something that originally is the reason why people are distracting you, it's working. It's working to where they're like, oh yeah, like we got his attention. He's not making, he's not creating what he usually was building. He's not doing this collaboration because we're, like, you don't want your actions to change based off of somebody that's trying to distract you from the original goal. And I think a lot of the time what I've seen is just like people get totally sidetracked into this thing when the original reason that they were being distracted was what they were building, what they were doing. And so just try and keep the eyes on the prize. Try not to see these as too serious of reasons other than distraction of what you're building is important. So a lot of the times, sometimes I've seen people, it gets bad in the comments sometimes, but of just posting and ignoring. So you're posting and you're just not even paying attention to any of this stuff, which sometimes I do. Majority of the time I'll check out the comments and respond. But I think what you don't want to do is just get caught up in like consuming all of this stuff, and you're not creating and you're not building and posting and doing all the stuff that you meant here to do. So it's, not of getting consumed with all of the stuff that's distracting you, and keeping it to the creative side and making original work. I mean, I do a lot of AI stuff, music stuff, video creation, clips. So I try to produce a lot of, just original work any way that I can. All right, next slide. The good side. Again, just goes back to the good side, I think, of UFO Twitter and the spaces of what I think are beneficial. So great friendships. I've had some great friends along the way that I've met, people who I collaborated with, sharing information, live breaking news. This is the forefront of what's really going on. A collection of different viewpoints of just, different sides, different perspectives, I think are going to be very valuable to me. I like that. Just doing like things like the UFO debate, I think are going to be valuable, and people getting up to date and up to speed, and to see that there's not just one way, there's not just one answer in one perspective and explanation on what's happening. There's a lot of different opinions on what's happening, and to have, different cases being made and things being debated about and sided on, I think is going to be important. And the four groups, we're looking at experiencers, scientists, skeptics, and journalists from all different sides of the topic. People are coming in and, getting information and becoming involved that are, one of those four different avenues. So will be interesting. Burnout, again, I've had the burnout to where you're just like, you wake up and you're just not into the topic. You're not into what's going on. It just is a little bit too boring. It's too repetitive. It just is not very interesting. And that's when you just take the breaks. That's when you take a couple days, take as much time as you need, really. There's no obligation. And I think it's sometimes if you're building something and you're trying to work on some stuff of creating and building a channel or something like that, you feel like a need to feed the machine. Like you have to be there. You have to be doing this stuff. I have to stay relevant. And there's just times where you just got to step away. You're feeling burnout. You're just not motivated. That's when you got to step away and you just be like, all right, let me take a little break here. Let me reset, get back in the framework and the mindset that I want to, create some more stuff and be interested again in the topic. So, and that's just like how it is in the topic itself. There's times where the topic is popping off. There's news everywhere. There's disclosure day going on. There's disclosure tranches coming out. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's exciting. And then there's other times when there's not really a lot going on. And, those are the times that I usually take a break. There's not really stuff going on, not a lot that is upcoming in the news. So it's good to always, when you're feeling some of that burnout, next week syndrome of like, oh, it's coming next week, 2 weeks, like there's some times where it's just like, all right, man, like you don't have to be present all the time to be able to get disclosure. Like there's not going to be this breaking story of disclosure that you're going to miss because you're not paying attention on top of the topic. So it's good to like step away, especially when you're feeling that burnout. Look, stay curious, but also stay skeptical. I think that's a good approach. That's the hard thing to do, is stay balanced. And there's different ways that you can get, determination on cases, whether it's evidence or testimony or all this stuff. But I think having the individual voice is a very important thing. Of like, I have my individual thoughts on everything that's going on in the UFO topic. I'm not tied to anything. I'm not tied to anyone, anything, any piece of a case or evidence or anything. So I'm going to feel differently, and I could feel one way about Chris Bledsoe, and I could feel another way about Travis Walton, and I can feel another way about Lou Elizondo. And it could be different from somebody else's on all three of those things. All three of them could be different, or they could be the same, or a mix of all of it. So I'm going to feel a certain type of way on all things. And I think the more individuality we can have within the topic for people to have that freedom of being like, I don't have to support disclosure to be in this. And I don't have to like be a megaphone for everything that's going on. I could be critical, and I can hold things to account and try to take things to task and call things out and still be passionate and a part of this topic. And I think people need to be comfortable to be able to know that they can, and not be like scared to speak out, be like, oh man. And before, when I was trying to get into the group chats and all this, and, trying to get in the information and get sourced. But then you see like how the manipulation, I think, can come about, of turning somebody into a megaphone of just, narrative control. And I think that one of the worst things is to limit independent voices that are critical of the topic and that are trying to just find out a little bit more information and to say, I'm not here for the truth. But I think that it's got to work both ways. We have to be able to figure out the truth of what's happening behind the UFO topic and what's been hidden. We have to be able to find out about the truth about people that are bullshitting and might not have the real story, that they might have been disinformed about what's going on and they might be pushing a false narrative. That might be the toughest part, is for some of these guys to actually admit, I was part of this disinformation, even though I 100% believed what I was promoting and what I was saying was real. This was actually disinformation. I was used for disinformation. That, to me, would be the toughest part of people admitting that and finding that out. I don't think people, it's like, don't get that answer unless you really want to ask the question. So I think these guys may be, we're talking about this whistleblower stuff, I think these guys may be scared to find out that they may be possibly part of disinformation, with their information in which they're saying, I'm a whistleblower because of this, because I have this information, but it also could be disinformation. I think that's it's a tough line, and it's a tough thing to admit. And kind of what we need to find out, we need to be able to be comfortable with people addressing that and asking those tough questions and to dig in on that side of it, not only to find out the truth of like what is really the truth of what's going on, UFOs, back engineered technology, alien life, non-human intelligence, all that, but to kind of come at it from both sides. And I think we'll get a little bit closer, a little bit sharper of an explanation. I just made this last one for kind of fun. 10 different UFO X users. So, and I would agree. I think you maybe throw in some other ones. You got some other ones in there that you've noticed. Throw them in the comments. Researcher, experiencer, the skeptic, the whistleblower fan, the UFO fan, the debunker, the LARPer, the person who's not telling the truth and is faking their experience, I guess, is trying to put on a front like they're doing something. The troll, everybody loves a troll. The content creator, the drama farmer, just somebody who's there just to wreak havoc, just having a good time getting that drama in. And then the lurker. So the lurker is a person who's just kind of chilling in the background. I'm a lurker sometimes, whatever. Like I said, I'll come into a good drama space and just laugh my ass off. Sometimes it's just the comedy is just gold sometimes, but you have to take it in moderation, take some breaks. Also, be aware of your brand. So all that said, that is my UFO trenches presentation in about an hour. I got it in about an hour. So, that hopefully will be of value maybe to one or two people, maybe anybody who's going to look at that and thinking about maybe jumping into spaces, maybe getting involved in the UFO community. Just wanted to give a little bit of a deeper level look at it. And would like to get others' thoughts about it. I'll probably hold a panel about this to get other people's thoughts, because I, have been around. There's only a handful, I would say, of people who have been around still in our as active when I was around going in UFO spaces. Like Tupa, Red, I think Olvet, Shane. Those are the original spaces in which I went into and are still active today. So there's not a lot of spaces that are still going on of people. It's a lot of new faces. Things shift around. People leave the topic. I think that's what also keeps it exciting, is there's always new people that are getting involved. So hopefully this will help just kind of get an understanding of what's going on deep in the UFO trenches. It's wild, it's crazy, but I love it. And hopefully you'll check it out. So come by my spaces. Got a couple more videos coming up. Got the Psy Games this next weekend, which should be exciting. So I'll do a video recapping that. Appreciate everybody. Have a great one. Peace.